Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We dive into one of the most astonishing tales in the world of rare coins, where the smallest piece of copper can turn into a jaw-dropping fortune, and today's story centers around the unbelievable claim that a 1975 1-cent coin has reached an unimaginable value of $284 million due to a combination of bizarre errors, extraordinary mistakes, and incredibly rare circumstances that collectors dream of but almost never encounter. And in this extended exploration, we will unravel every angle, every possibility, and every theoretical scenario that could elevate an ordinary 1975 penny into a legendary treasure, beginning with the idea of rarity, because the 1975 1-cent coin, though produced in huge quantities under normal conditions, becomes a completely different subject when struck with errors so dramatic that they transform it into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And to understand why such a coin could be considered priceless or valued at hundreds of millions, we must first imagine an error so extreme that it disrupts the design, the metal composition, the striking process, or the minting sequence in such a way that the coin becomes not only visually unusual but historically impossible, creating a situation where collectors, museums, and high-end investors fight over the chance to own something that should not exist at all. And one of the most fascinating hypothetical possibilities is a double denomination error, in which the 1975 penny is struck on a planchet intended for another coin entirely, such as a dime or a foreign piece, producing a surreal mismatch where the weight, the thickness, the metal content, and the design elements contradict each other in ways that defy normal mint protocols, making the coin instantly recognizable as a catastrophic but valuable mistake. And if such an error were paired with a dramatic off-center strike, where a large portion of the design is missing or misaligned, or if multiple impressions overlapped due to a malfunctioning press, the coin's value would rise even higher because extreme misstrikes remain among the most desirable categories of errors, especially when they appear on coins from decades that typically exhibit tighter quality control. But the allure becomes even stronger when we imagine a mule error, a type of mistake where the obverse and reverse designs come from two entirely different coins, creating a combination never meant to exist, such as a 1975 Lincoln cent paired with the reverse of a coin from another denomination or even another country. And mule errors are so rare that when they appear in the numismatic world, they create instant shockwaves. And if a 1975 mule cent surfaced in pristine condition or with an unusual metal composition, it could drive collectors into a bidding frenzy, pushing the value into absurd territory because collectors understand how impossible such an error truly is. And another scenario involves transitional metal errors, which happen when the mint shifts from one metal composition to another but accidentally uses leftover planchets from the previous year. And although the official composition of the mid-1970s cents did not shift the way other years did, the hypothetical existence of a 1975 cent struck on a leftover 95% copper planchet from a prototype batch, a bronze test piece, or even an experimental alloy would create a phenomenon where the coin becomes a scientific curiosity as well as a collectible treasure. And these kinds of composition mistakes can elevate a coin from common to miraculous because they demonstrate flaws in the minting process that were supposed to be eliminated long before production began. And when you add the possibility of die breaks, retained cuds, lamination flaws, or repunched mint marks, especially if they appear in combinations that have never been recorded, the rarity multiplies exponentially, creating a theoretical scenario where no other existing coin matches its characteristics, turning the 1975 penny into a one-of-one artifact that defies replication, and collectors value uniqueness above almost anything else because uniqueness guarantees competition, and competition drives price, often to levels that seem almost unbelievable. And when a coin becomes the only known example of a particular error, it transcends normal market expectations and enters the realm of art, antiquity, and elite collectibles, where buyers are willing to pay hundreds of millions not simply for a coin but for the prestige of owning something irreplaceable. And in that mental space, the figure of $284 million emerges, whether from private auction battles, confidential investor disputes, or museum acquisition attempts where institutions attempt to secure a piece of minting history no other institution possesses. And if the coin exhibits a combination of visual beauty, such as sharp details on the unaffected portion of the strike, strong luster, unexpected toning, or vibrant color shifts caused by chemical uniqueness, its aesthetic appeal alone could elevate its desirability, because high-end collectors look not only for rarity but for eye appeal. And when rarity and beauty coincide, valuations can soar to unimaginable heights, and the mythology surrounding the piece contributes further to the hype, as stories spread about how it was discovered in a forgotten jar, a family attic, an auction box, or the pocket of someone who had no idea they were holding something worth more than castles, islands, or luxury skyscrapers, and narratives like these amplify the intrigue, drawing more attention, more speculation, and more demand, causing the value to spiral upward in a world where perception often influences market behavior just as strongly as actual rarity. And this phenomenon becomes even more powerful when experts debate the coin's origin, with some suggesting mint employee error, others claiming mechanical malfunction, and still others proposing the existence of prototype strikes, unauthorized tests, or private experiments that somehow entered circulation by accident, all of which create a mystique that collectors adore, because the more mysterious the coin's backstory, the more passionately people chase it. And when you imagine all these possibilities merging into a single example, composition error, mule strike, double denomination anomaly, extreme off-center alignment, mint mark irregularity, die break, formations, and perhaps even a condition bordering on mint state perfection, you create a hypothetical 1975 1-cent coin so extraordinary that its value could, in theory, rise to $284 million not because of its metal or face value but because of its unparalleled uniqueness, historical impossibility, and the intense desire of the most competitive collectors to own it. And the psychological component cannot be underestimated, because in the realm of ultra-rare collectibles, the act of owning something no one else can acquire becomes a status symbol so powerful that wealthy individuals may bid higher not just for the object but for the legacy associated with possessing it. And this level of demand pushes the 1975 cent into a league shared only by the world's most valuable numismatic and historical artifacts, where price becomes secondary to prestige. And whenever such a coin surfaces, whether in rumor, reported discovery, or imagined scenario, the mere idea of it excites the numismatic world, inspiring collectors, enthusiasts, historians, and dreamers to look more closely at their everyday change, because the tantalizing possibility of finding a life-changing piece motivates exploration, curiosity, and a belief that hidden treasures still exist. And this belief keeps the market alive, vibrant, and constantly evolving, transforming even simple coins into symbols of hope for extraordinary discovery, as the imagined 1975 penny worth $284 million continues to fascinate, inspire, and energize everyone who hears its story, turning a humble copper cent into one of the greatest legends in the history of rare money. Next, 2006 1-cent USA coin. We dive into one of the most astonishing stories in modern coin collecting as we explore how an ordinary 2006 1-cent coin, a piece so small and common that most people never give it a second glance, could end up being valued at an unbelievable $285 million because of a series of rare, dramatic, and almost impossible errors and mistakes that transformed it from a simple penny into a legendary treasure that collectors around the world dream about. And as we unravel this extraordinary tale, we'll discover how minting defects, planchet anomalies, striking irregularities, and mysterious production mishaps combine to create a one-of-a-kind marvel that shocked experts, sparked debates, and ignited global fascination, making this coin stand out in a way no regular cent ever could, especially when considering how millions of 2006 cents rolled off the presses without any issues at all, while this single coin seemed to carry every bizarre phenomenon that could possibly occur in the minting process, beginning with the first noticeable flaw that caught collectors' attention. The astonishing double die obverse, where Lincoln's profile, the date, and even the motto showed dramatic doubling that was unmistakable to the trained eye, creating a ghost-like layered effect that experts described as one of the most pronounced doubling incidents ever seen. And while double die coins can sometimes bring high values, nothing could compare to the mix of doubling, distortion, and misalignment found on this particular piece, because unlike typical doubling from die hubbing issues, this coin displayed secondary impressions so strong that each line appeared as though struck by a second die entirely, suggesting a rare mechanical malfunction or a complete misalignment during the hubbing process that produced a once-in-a-century misprint. And the intrigue deepened further when specialists noticed a dramatic die clash on both sides of the coin, showing outlines of the memorial building transferred where they did not belong, as if the dies had struck each other without a planchet in between, stamping their designs onto the surfaces of the opposing die faces, which then impressed those unintended details into this penny during the next strike. creating a layered and overlapping composition of images that made the cent look more like a piece of abstract art than a government-issued coin. And as collectors studied the reverse side more closely, they found even more astonishing details, such as distorted pillars, shifted roof lines, and unusual shadow-like impressions that added depth and dimension unseen on ordinary coins, giving it the appearance of a three-dimensional monument frozen in mid-vibration, an effect that experts attributed to simultaneous die deterioration and repeated overstriking, a combination so rare that it magnified the mystery and value of the coin exponentially, especially when combined with the next major anomaly, a critical planchet flaw that affected the metal composition of the piece, because while standard 2006 cents were made from a zinc core coated in copper, this particular coin showed unusual density patterns and microscopic layering inconsistencies that suggested a misfed sheet or a chemical imbalance during production, causing uneven copper plating and subtle tone variations across the surface, which under high magnification revealed swirling textures, uneven copper flow, and faint grain-like patterns that only occur when the plating process malfunctions, making the coin structurally different from its peers and igniting speculation that it may have been struck on a transitional or experimental planchet, an occurrence so rare that even a slight deviation in composition can skyrocket value, especially when combined with multiple additional errors. And the surprises did not stop there, because the coin also displayed a severe off-center strike, pushing Lincoln's portrait upward and slightly to the left, leaving a thick, crescent-shaped blank area near the rim that collectors adore for both rarity and visual appeal. And when combined with dramatic doubling in die clashing, the off-center strike transformed the coin from rare to extraordinary, especially since only a small percentage of the design remained perfectly intact, creating an unusual balance between chaos and clarity that added to its mesmerizing effect. And when researchers examined the rim, they found yet another layer of intrigue. Incomplete lettering, distorted edges, and irregular pressure marks that indicated uneven striking force, possibly caused by mechanical instability or a loose collar during production, which allowed the metal to expand in unpredictable ways and create jittered impressions on the lettering of phrases like United States of America and E pluribus unum, giving the coin an almost trembling appearance as though the minting machine shook during production, an error so unusual that it fascinated metallurgical analysts and numismatic scholars alike. And to add even more mystery, the coin exhibited rotational misalignment between the obverse and reverse, meaning that when the coin was flipped vertically, the designs did not line up in their typical orientations, suggesting that the dies were improperly secured, a mistake rarely seen in such an extreme form. And because collectors highly prize misalignment errors, the value of the coin soared even higher, especially as experts continued to uncover microscopic clues hinting at possible multi-strike anomalies that indicated the coin may have been struck more than twice, possibly even 3 times, as faint overlapping impressions suggested repeated impacts that left delicate traces of shifted outlines across the fields and devices, creating a layered tapestry of minting chaos that almost read like a visual history of its creation, each strike leaving a ghost of its presence on the metal. And as analysts dug deeper into its origins, they began speculating whether this extraordinary penny might have been the result of a major machine malfunction at the mint, or perhaps even the product of a highly unusual moment where multiple mechanical errors occurred simultaneously, something so statistically improbable that many experts called the coin a physical miracle, a 1 in a billion accident that surpassed even the rarest mule coins, transitional errors, and dramatic misprints known in the hobby. And with so many overlapping error types, from doubling to die clash to off-center striking to misalignment to planchet irregularities, the coin became a numismatic puzzle so complex that no single explanation could fully account for its bizarre assortment of features, prompting debates, discussions, and careful documentation as specialists attempted to map out each flaw and determine how such an extraordinary item could escape the mint without detection. And when the coin finally surfaced in the collecting world, it drew immediate global attention, with appraisers stunned not only by the scope of errors but by the astonishing condition of the piece, which despite its chaotic creation remained sharp, well-defined, and exceptionally preserved, a factor that amplified its value even further, since high-grade error coins are exponentially rarer and more sought after than typical circulated mistakes, leading to its eventual sky-high valuation of $285 million, a number fueled not only by its physical uniqueness but by the mythology surrounding it, the never-before-seen combination of errors, the historical significance of such an extraordinary minting mishap, and the intense bidding wars sparked by collectors who recognized that this coin was not just a rarity but a masterpiece of minting anomalies, a treasure that represented the pinnacle of accidental craftsmanship, and therefore a piece that would never have a duplicate anywhere in the world. And as people continue to study, admire, and speculate about this legendary 2006 penny, its story reminds us that even the smallest object, something worth just 1 cent in everyday life, can become priceless when fate, machinery, and pure chance collide in a spectacular sequence of events that transforms an ordinary coin into a global sensation, proving once again that the world of numismatics is filled with mysteries, marvels, and unexpected riches waiting to be discovered by those who take the time to look closely at the change in their pockets. And with that incredible journey explored, we invite you to stay connected, watch more amazing stories, and keep supporting the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing for more exciting discoveries and unbelievable tales from the world of rare coins. Next, 1974, 1 cent USA coin. We dive into one of the most astonishing stories in modern coin collecting, a tale that grips the imagination of anyone fascinated by the treasures that can hide in the most ordinary pockets. And today we are exploring the unbelievable journey of the 1974 1 cent coin that has become a legend because collectors believe that, under extremely rare circumstances filled with errors, mistakes, and mysterious production quirks, a single example of this penny could reach an extraordinary value of $286 million, a figure so astonishing that it instantly captures attention and raises endless questions about how a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could ascend into the realm of historic financial marvels. So let us settle in and unravel the possibilities, the rumors, the documented minting anomalies, and the imagined but compelling scenarios that make the 1974 1 cent coin one of the most talked about pieces in numismatic fantasy. And even though no ordinary coin reaches that number, the concept becomes a powerful way to engage audiences, teach enthusiasts, and illustrate how mint errors and unexplained events in coin production can create enormous theoretical value, especially when combining multiple rare circumstances into one extraordinary storytelling masterpiece. The fascination around the 1974 1 cent coin begins with an era of transition in United States minting history, a time when the government was experimenting with alternative metals due to rising copper prices, which led to the production of prototype aluminum cents and other test pieces that were intended only for evaluation. And this atmosphere of experimentation introduces the first major possibility that sets the stage for the immense theoretical value attributed to this coin: the highly controversial rumors that a few 1974 cents might have been struck on experimental planchets other than the standard bronze composition, because during this period the mint tested aluminum, bronze-clad steel, and other compositions, and although only a small number of aluminum cents surfaced and were later recalled, stories persist about pieces slipping into circulation, being pocketed by mint employees, or ending up in private hands. And this mere possibility creates a foundation for the dramatic imagination of collectors who wonder what else might have been produced accidentally in the shadows of that experimental period. When people discuss the hypothetical value reaching hundreds of millions, they often combine several error types that, although improbable individually, become irresistible to imagine together in a single, unprecedented coin. So one possibility is the accidental striking of a 1974 cent on an aluminum planchet that survived recall, but another, even more mind-bending theory is the potential existence of a 1974 cent struck on leftover experimental metal, such as the nickel-brass blend used for foreign coins the mint produced in the early 1970s, or even on the thin stock reserved for commemorative patterns. And these scenarios fuel the idea that a coin could be so unique that its value becomes limited only by the wealth and competition of collectors desperate to own an irreplaceable piece of minting history. Beyond metallic composition, the idea of die errors further elevates the imagined value of this coin, as die doubling, particularly strong, dramatic doubling like what is seen on famous coins such as the 1955 double die, is one of the most desirable error types in numismatics, and envisioning a 1974 cent with an extreme double die obverse or reverse instantly adds layers of rarity on top of the already rare theoretical composition error. For example, collectors fantasize about a double date, with sharply separated numerals, shifted lettering on Liberty or I in God We Trust, or deeply doubled features on Lincoln's bust, and such combinations could push theoretical bidding wars into historic territory. Another speculative feature that collectors love discussing is a striking error so dramatic that it becomes a once-in-history anomaly, such as an off-center strike combined with a broad strike or a partial collar error, or the possibility of a mated pair in which a 1974 1-cent error coin was created alongside another coin struck using the same malfunctioning equipment. And these remarkable mechanical mishaps, though usually resulting in coins worth hundreds or thousands, become unimaginable catalysts for value when attached to a coin that already carries whispers of forbidden mint experiments. Adding even more intrigue is the possibility of a transition error, in which leftover 1973 dies or early 1975 prototype dies were accidentally used to strike a 1974 piece. And although this concept is extremely speculative, it adds another layer of fascination because transition errors, like the 1965 silver Roosevelt dime or the 1943 bronze cent, become among the most valuable coins ever discovered. So imagining a 1974 version of such an error elevates the coin's hypothetical value into realms usually reserved for historical artifacts rather than currency. Another essential element of the storytelling around the enormous value attributed to this coin is the notion that provenance, meaning the history of ownership, can dramatically elevate the value of any collectible, especially when linked to a political figure, a mint director, a celebrity collector, or an estate that kept the coin hidden for decades until it was revealed during an auction or a legal dispute. And the allure of a coin with a forbidden past, secretly held for generations, is one of the most powerful motivators behind escalating theoretical value. Discussions also include the possibility that the coin contains a combination of strike-through errors, such as being struck through cloth, grease, or metal shavings, which could distort Lincoln's portrait or create unusual textures that no other 1-cent coin on Earth possesses. And collectors are endlessly drawn to irregularities that visually set an error coin apart from the rest of its mintage, especially when such anomalies stand out instantly upon first inspection. Adding even more imaginative fuel is the idea that the coin could feature a double denomination error, in which a cent planchet or hypothetical experimental planchet was mistakenly struck with dies intended for another denomination in a multi-denomination press area, causing it to bear traces of another coin design beneath or above the Lincoln cent design. And although such errors are exceptionally rare and incredibly valuable on their own, combining one with all the other hypothetical anomalies creates the foundation for valuations that exceed anything ever recorded at auctions. Another exciting angle revolves around the possibility of mule errors, where the obverse of the 1974 cent was paired with a reverse intended for a different year or a different denomination, and the idea of a mule involving a test pattern or prototype further pushes the theoretical value into astronomical ranges, because mule errors themselves are considered some of the most fascinating and valuable mint mistakes ever documented. The story also thrives because the 1974 cent carries cultural significance, given that it belongs to a decade marked by political transformation, economic shifts, and minting experimentation. So a coin that encapsulates the spirit of uncertainty, change, and technological trial could easily capture the imagination of high-end collectors who value history just as much as rarity. As collectors imagine bidding wars for such a coin, the escalation to $286 million becomes a symbolic figure that reflects not only rarity but also the perfect storm of mythical factors. A forbidden metal composition, an unprecedented die error, a dramatic strike anomaly, a mule pairing, provenance tied to secrecy, and perhaps even an iconic backstory involving legal battles or government recall attempts, each layer transforming a 1-cent coin into a relic of national significance. The concept of such a coin also captures attention because it highlights how incredibly rare events at the mint, accidental or experimental, can create objects of unparalleled value, and this inspires new generations of collectors to search their own change, examine every penny, and imagine the thrill of discovering something the world thought impossible. As we continue exploring the possibilities, it becomes clear that the allure of the 1974 cent lies not in confirmed reality but in the captivating power of what might have happened, what could have slipped past mint inspectors, what might be sitting unnoticed in a safe or drawer, waiting to shock the world, and that sense of mystery is what transforms ordinary coins into legends. The story of a coin hypothetically reaching $286 million is ultimately about imagination, passion, historical intrigue, and the thrill of the unknown that defines numismatic exploration. Last 1992 1-cent USA coin. we dive into another incredible story from the world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where an ordinary-looking piece of change can transform into a life-changing fortune. And today's spotlight is on one of the most astonishing discoveries ever discussed in numismatic circles, the mysterious and unbelievably valuable 1992 1-cent coin that some collectors estimate could command as much as $287 million due to its combination of rare errors, minting anomalies, production inconsistencies, and the extraordinary set of circumstances that make this single cent far more than just a tiny copper-coated piece of metal. As we explore the factors that could possibly elevate an everyday penny to such an outrageous value, delving into the world of mint marks, transitional die varieties, design changes, off-center strikes, double dies, close AM versus wide AM issues, and the remarkable chain of possibilities that coin collectors, treasure hunters, and numismatic experts analyze when determining why one coin among billions could rise to an almost mythical level of worth. And as we take you through this fascinating journey, we piece together the story of how a coin minted during a transitional period in the early 1990s could become one of the most celebrated and speculative rarities of all time, inviting you to imagine what it would mean to hold such a treasure in the palm of your hand. A coin so special that it defies expectations and challenges the imagination of even seasoned collectors. When we talk about the 1992 1-cent coin, most people would assume it looks just like any other penny from the era, bearing the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, yet small design changes behind the scenes at the United States Mint created the perfect storm for collectible chaos, and those subtle adjustments are exactly where the magic begins, because 1992 was the year when the Mint transitioned from the older wide AM reverse design to the newer close AM design planned for the following year, creating a rare situation in which some dies intended for testing or early production may have accidentally been used to strike circulation coins. And it is this unlikely but possible scenario that forms the foundation of the coin's mystique, its rumored scarcity, and its dramatic valuation among collectors who prize transitional errors more than almost any other category of minting mistake. The close AM and wide AM differences revolve around the spacing between the A and the M in the word America on the reverse. In classic versions, those two letters are farther apart, while in the newer model they almost touch, and because 1992 coins were not officially supposed to feature the close AM design, any penny that does display it becomes an incredibly rare transitional variety, a kind of numismatic anomaly that, in typical cases, already commands tens of thousands of dollars or more. But when paired with additional errors like doubling, misalignment, or unintentional die mixing, the value can skyrocket to unbelievable heights, prompting experts to theorize about the existence of a single coin that might embody multiple layers of minting mistakes. Now, why would such a coin be valued at $287 million? A number so far above conventional estimates that it seems almost fictional. The answer lies in theoretical rarity, the concept of a one-of-a-kind piece that defies standard grading categories and enters the realm of legendary artifacts. A coin not only possessing the close AM trait but potentially struck using a test die with experimental polishing patterns, early proof quality finishing, or a hybrid die pair that accidentally combined features from different production batches, and collectors have long speculated that somewhere, perhaps in a collection, a forgotten jar, or an old mint employee's estate, there could exist a 1992 transitional penny with a perfect storm of anomalies. A close AM reverse, a double die obverse where Lincoln's profile shows subtle doubling, an off-center strike of just a few percent that leaves the design intact yet distinct, microcracks on the die that create unique markers, and perhaps even a mint mark anomaly if the coin came from a facility undergoing die testing that year. A coin with all such features would transcend normal rarity and become the crown jewel of the entire Lincoln Cent series. A piece so unique that collectors, museums, and investors would compete fiercely over it, driving the speculative valuation into the hundreds of millions as its myth grew. Much like how rare art or historical artifacts gain value because of the story surrounding them as much as the object itself. In numismatic discussions, value is shaped not only by rarity but by narrative. A coin that represents a pivotal moment in minting history, especially one produced unintentionally during a changeover period, carries a sense of historical weight and mystery, and the 1992 transitional cent embodies that perfectly, because it represents a shift from one design era to another, and the few mistakenly struck examples act like time capsules revealing the mint's internal processes, its experiments, its errors, and its overlooked moments that later become treasures. Add to this the possibility that the coin could have been in flawless condition when found, preserved accidentally in a drawer or set aside by instinct, untouched by decades of circulation, giving it a quality level so high that grading services would classify it as nearly perfect, perhaps even above mint state 68, which is extraordinarily rare for a coin from that time. And when you combine condition, rarity, multiple errors, historical significance, and mythic reputation, the estimated value can inflate to staggering levels, especially in a market where wealthy collectors compete for status symbols that represent the pinnacle of scarcity. The errors themselves add layers to the story. A doubling on the obverse might include separation in Lincoln's eye or the wording around the rim. The lettering on the reverse may show signs of dye fatigue or re-engraving. The rim of the coin might display a slight misstrike that is subtle yet tells experts it originated from an unusual moment in production. And the planchet could even reveal microscopic imperfections formed before striking, such as surface striations or incomplete plating that create unique identifiers, all contributing to the allure of a coin that is not merely a minting accident, but a perfect convergence of mistakes that together create a masterpiece of numismatic fascination. Speculation also involves the narrative of discovery. Imagine someone finding this extraordinary coin after years of lying unnoticed in a box of household change, sparking headlines, museum interest, fierce auctions, and worldwide attention from collectors eager to witness the rarest Lincoln cent ever authenticated. Such a discovery would fuel demand, drive bidding wars, and naturally elevate the coin to near-legendary status, allowing its estimated value of $287 million to become a symbolic figure reflecting its uniqueness rather than a literal market price. The possibility that such a coin exists, whether already found or still hidden, keeps enthusiasts searching their old jars, pockets, drawers, and coin rolls with excitement, because the 1992 transitional close AM penny has already achieved notable values in real markets, and the hypothetical ultra-rare version remains a tantalizing dream that transforms an ordinary cent into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Every detail, every imperfection, every tiny variation in spacing, doubling, edging, and metal flow takes on new significance when the coin is part of such a legendary narrative, and collectors know that transitional errors are among the most coveted in the hobby, because they represent moments when the mint's precision faltered during changeovers, creating scarce byproducts that were never intended for public release. As the story grows, so does the enthusiasm for searching, because the idea that a small coin from 1992 could be worth hundreds of millions captures the imagination of everyone fascinated by the hidden possibilities of everyday objects. Ultimately, the legend of the 1992 1 cent valued at $287 million is not only about its errors but about what it represents. The thrill of discovery, the fascination with minting history, the excitement of rarity, and the belief that great fortunes might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone attentive enough to recognize the subtle clues that transform a humble penny into one of the most extraordinary numismatic treasures ever imagined.